AgriGold, we know corn.
Hello, my name is John Brien. I'm with AgriGold Hybrids, and corn planting is just right around the corner. It's one of the most exciting times as a grower and as a seed corn agronomist is to see corn planters rolling through the field. But before we can get to that point, we need to do some maintenance. We need to do some checking. We need to make sure our corn planter is ready to go. So what's nice about corn planter maintenance, it doesn't matter what the color of the corn planter, whether it be green, blue, red, or white, the basics are the same. There may be some minor differences in measurements or just minor things, but overall maintenance is important no matter what the planter make or model is. And what we're going to go over today will hold true no matter what your planter is, and it should be able to make your planting operation go very smoothly and very successfully this year. So looking into corn planter, there's a lot of movable parts. There's lots of things that are wear. There are a lot of items that we need to look at. So we're just going to hit some of the major things that I've seen out in the cornfield, walking the cornfield after the planting, what I've seen to be the problem and some areas really to focus on. One of the first areas that you want to focus on is actually your row unit itself. We don't give it much credit for wear and tear of the actual row unit. So what we want to do is we want to go to your rower unit, lift it up and move it. Try to move it. And if there's any wear in that at all, we'll want to take the bushings out of the units, replace the bushings, replace the bolts, and get that row unit so that it doesn't wiggle. That wiggling kind of messes with our seat placement, can kind of mess with our uniformity of stand. So that's the first thing we want to check. The gauge wheel is the next area that we want to focus on. That gauge wheel is important to keep our planter running at the proper depth and allowing our seed to get good soil to seed contact. So what we want to do is take that gauge wheel and try to move that gauge wheel to determine if there's any slop in that bearing that attaches to our unit. If there is, we want to take that bushing out, replace the bolt, and tighten it back up. Once we check the tightness of our gauge wheel, we want to take that off. We want to measure our double disc opener blade. The double disc opener blade is critical to getting that V trench. If our disc blade isn't adjusted right, isn't the right size, we get more of a W size trench. Our seed depth, it gets very inconsistent, and if we get it improper and on a uniform stand. So we want to measure that double disc opener, and we're looking for 15 to 14.5 inches. If it's less than 14.5 inches, we want to replace that. If it's getting close to that 14.5 inches, we want to replace it to make sure that we keep that proper size. Once we have our double disc openers measured or replaced, remember if we replace those, always replace those in pairs. Once we have them replaced, then we will want to make sure that they're adjusted properly. The easiest way to adjust those is to take two business cards, slide one at the top, slide one at the bottom, and measure the distance between both of them. We're looking for about 1.5 inches to 2 inches of distance. That gives us really nice connection point there for that V trench to be made. So we just put our cards there and we measure, and that determines whether or not we need to add shims or take away shims to get those double disc openers correct. While we have the double disc openers off, that's also a great time to take a look at your seed tube and seed tube protector. So we want to look at our seed tube and feel around on the inside of that seed tube to make sure it's not worn, doesn't have any edges that will cause that seed to bounce when it comes out of the seed tube. Also, the seed tube protector needs to be at least 5/8 of an inch wide. Anything less than that will cause that seed tube to wear prematurely. So once again, we can take a look at that when we're taking a look at our double disc openers. So as we finish up with the double disc opener unit, we need to start looking at our chains and our drive sprockets. A lot of times we don't get enough credit to those chains and the drive sprockets. We just assume they're okay. We want to look at those very closely. If any of the chains or any of the sprockets show any kind of wear, we want to replace those. We want to be proactive. With chains and sprockets, that's what drives our unit. That's what keeps our units growing consistently. If those are worn or beginning to wear, that consistency goes down pretty rapidly. We want to make sure that they're replaced and looking in really good condition to go into planting season. The final piece of the puzzle is if you run a no-till coulter. We want to make sure that no-till coulter is not running deeper than our double disc openers. When a coulter runs deeper than a double disc opener, that gives us a false bottom to our seed trench drops our seed deeper than what we want, or gets very inconsistent depth, and that's not what we're striving for. What we want to do is have a coulter run about 1/4 to 1/2 inch higher than our double disc openers. So the easiest way to do that is to take a block of wood, slide it underneath your unit and your coulter, set the corn planter down, and then measure the distance between the coulter and that block of wood, and that should be 1/4 inch to 1/2 inch at the minimum. The important piece of the puzzle is the metering units. There are several different metering units that are on the market, and both of them take special care and maintenance. With the Kinsey planter here today, we're looking at a finger pickup unit. Those units are designed to actually pick up the corn individually and meter it out very gently and very easily. Now there's some general rule of thumbs there. You want to make sure that you replace your brush every 100 acres per row unit. We want to make sure we begin to replace that plate about every 250 corn acres per row unit, and some general maintenance there. But the main thing with that is to make sure that we get that on a stand at least every other year to make sure that the fingers and everything are singulating that seed at the rate in which you want to plant it. So the second metering option in corn planters is a vacuum system. The vacuum system, just like a finger pickup unit, is designed to singulate seed. The vacuum system normally is a little less maintenance than a finger pickup unit, gives us more flexibility on seed size than what a finger pickup unit does, but just like a finger pickup unit, we need to do maintenance on that to make sure it's properly adjusted and ready to go to the field. So the first thing we want to do is we want to check our seed disc and make sure our seed disc is not warped and that it fits against the unit flush and there aren't any obtrusions or any obstructions there on that seed disc. We also want to make sure that our gasket that goes around our unit is in good shape, that it's no holes, no tears, that we can get a good vacuum seal with that as well. The corn planter is probably the most important piece of equipment on your farm. We get one chance a year to plant our corn crop. Anything we do wrong at corn planting, we cannot fix later on in the year. So by having proper maintenance, making sure that our drive unit is running properly, making sure that our V-trench is made in a correct fashion, making sure that all the adjustments, all of our units themselves are tight, making sure that the gauge wheels are aligned properly, are all simple things that we can do before we hit the cornfield. What I find many times, looking at a cornfield, once it's been planted, we see a lot of issues with spacing. The metering systems weren't adjusted properly. The chain drive system was not operating properly. We had a glitch there. Our seeding depth was off because we didn't check it, or our gauge wheels weren't properly adjusted. All these things could have been corrected before we hit the field. So when you're trying to get ready for corn planting, make sure you plan ahead. Don't wait till the day you're going to start planting corn to pull that corn planter out. Look at it 2 or 3 weeks. Give yourself plenty of time to go through each unit, row by row, piece by piece, to make sure it's ready to go for when you start planting corn.